How a Romance Novel Saved the Galaxy by Ariana De Rolte. Chapter 41. Mace 5. Mace had had a wonderful evening in Little Galave. He'd been fascinated to discover over dinner that an armorer's role in Mandalorian society was largely similar to a council member's. They mediated cultural issues the Mandalore and the clan leaders couldn't or didn't deal with, and that often involved sending the Mandalorians off on an assigned task, i.e. a mission, then judging the results of that task when it had been completed. Sutra had also been an excellent bed partner, and Mace had enjoyed giving as good as he got. The only thing he regretted was that he'd gotten very little sleep the night before, and he now had to deal with Qui-Gon Jinn, who had finally made his way back to the temple. Mace's first thought upon seeing Qui-Gon standing in front of the council was that he really needed a haircut. Several sections of his hair were shorter than others. His second was that the deceptively calm Jedi Master was spoiling for a fight. This was unfortunately not all that unusual for Qui-Gon Jinn when facing the council, since they were often asking him pertinent questions like, why are we paying for rebuilding of a church? And is there a reason you gifted a prince with a dangerous animal that has now mauled a servant? The truth of the matter was that while Qui-Gon was an excellent Jedi in terms of completing missions, he was horrible with interpersonal relationships. Mace suspected the only reason he did so well as a diplomat was because the people he helped didn't have to spend much time with him, so they never saw through his charm and politeness to the stubborn independent core underneath. The council had all sorts of opinions on the issue of Qui-Gon Jinn. Devolka had loudly and publicly been calling Qui-Gon a great Jedi and saying he didn't even belong in the Order for years. Yoda, meanwhile, treated each of Qui-Gon's sparsely written mission reports as if it were some sort of game where he would ask questions to see if he could get Qui-Gon to admit the things which they all knew had happened, but he hadn't written down. Terrace and Nube called Qui-Gon the hasty master in private, but never said much in actual meetings with the man. Mace knew that he, Adigalia, Yaddle, and Ki-Adi-Mundi all shared similar opinions of Qui-Gon Jinn due to the fact that they all had been on missions with the man at one point or another. Notably, they had all, politely, let it be known that they didn't wish to work with Qui-Gon on a mission ever again, barring emergencies. Mace had been a knight for barely a year when he was sent on a mission with Qui-Gon to act as diplomatic liaisons during a planet's worldwide athletic competition. Qui-Gon had used a loophole in the rules to sign Mace up for the competition, throwing him into the spotlight so that Qui-Gon could infiltrate the gambling dens and discover a conspiracy to drug certain athletes and rig the bets. While it had all worked out in the end, Mace had had to do a lot of meditation to release his anger into the Force. Qui-Gon could have explained the plan to him. He'd had plenty of opportunity, and Mace would likely have agreed to it, even if it was a bit outside their remit as diplomatic liaisons. But the Master had not even kept in touch with him while Mace was thrown into the thick of it, and the only answer he'd given Mace for why he didn't keep him informed was that it was the will of the Force. Bantha shit! Qui-Gon hadn't talked to Mace because he didn't want Mace to object to his plan. Mace was sure the other counselors who refused to work with Qui-Gon had similar stories, though he had only heard Addie's. "Read the report we have," began Yoda. "Mention Obi-Wan being sold into slavery. It was not." He was going right to the heart of the matter, it seems. Qui-Gon seemed surprised at the opening salvo as well. "And this shit Kenobi wasn't part of my mission. I kept an eye on him as a courtesy, but he should have been focusing on his Agricole posting. When he did go missing, I was informed, but the Force led me to investigate Xanatos, and I trusted that would lead to the Initiate eventually. Since he was rescued, my Master Faye, it should be in her report." Mace was sure that Qui-Gon was aware that the decision had been made by the Council many centuries ago that any of Faye's missions assigned by the Force didn't require mission reports unless they requested them. Unfortunately for Qui-Gon, they had. She had submitted it while en route to Mandalore. "Yes, we have a report, along with complaints of the Mandalorians involved," said Tivoka, sounding just a tad smug. "Protocol should have had you reporting that an Agricole member was missing immediately," interjected Ki-Adi, who was always a stickler for the rules. "I was busy investigating and had just given a report to Master Yoda," said Qui-Gon stiffly. "It would have wasted precious time to call him back, but I apologize for the lapse."
"Busy investigating Xanatos, you were?"
asked Yaddle, her voice neutral.
Yes, exactly.
"And your reason for not bothering to visit the site of Obi-Wan's abduction?" asked Terra. "Xanatos was obviously involved. Once I found him in possession of Obi-Wan's lightsaber, I planned to go investigate, but Master Fate intercepted me and informed me there was no need."
Polydapachin's sigh was louder through his respirator.
"This is the reason the Mandalorians are angry with us. You left a child enslaved for 3 days.
"They are angry because I didn't investigate Obi-Wan's disappearance fast enough?"
Qui-Gon sounded genuinely puzzled. He had predictably not read the book as ordered, it seemed. Though considering how rarely the man checked his comms, he probably hadn't even seen it.
"Recent interactions with the Mandalorians have shown they hold children more important than we had ever realized,"
Adi was kind enough to explain.
"They view your treatment of Obi-Wan, and ours by extension, as deplorable." "He wasn't my mission!"
Qui-Gon's glare was directed at Yoda, rather rightfully in this case.
"That he didn't have an escort to his assignment was hardly my fault. I went out of my way to provide him some guidance since the situation on the ship to Mandalore was volatile, but it wasn't my responsibility once we reached planet side."
Kenobi was underage by both Jedi and Mandalorian standards, explained Oppo. "They are accusing us of not treating a child under our care properly." He gave a hiss of disappointment. "And I believe they are correct." The Council of Reassignment and Master Waresha's recommendation for the removal of Yoda and El-Mem from Squall clan leadership had been delivered, though the Council had yet to address it. Mace wondered how that would go now that Yoda had been taken to task by Master Fei. It was yet another of the multiple issues the Council needed to deal with. Mace's headache was back.
"We are dealing with the mistakes made on the temple's part, Master Jin. It was your duty as a Jedi when you saw the cub was not properly escorted to take care of him. He is a member of our order and deserves our protection," declared Tivoka. "And yet it's clear from both the Mandalorians and Obi-Wan's reports that you talked to him only when forced to, and didn't make him your priority at any point, even after you discovered that you had been brought to Bandamir on a pretense, and your original mission was no longer applicable." "I thought it would be cruel to give him hope that I would choose him," admitted Qui-Gon.
"You're right, it was, not to choose him," said Yaddle.
"But why didn't your report mention the remarkable skills the cub displayed over the course of the trip, so that Kenobi might be considered by another master?"
That was a good point on Tivoka's part. If Mace had been in Qui-Gon's situation, he'd have sent an inquiry to the temple immediately about why such a promising initiate had been sent to the core.
Qui-Gon shook his head. "The boy is full of anger, and will not make it as a Jedi. He will fall."
"Told you that? The Force did? Or your fears?" asked Yoda sadly.
Qui-Gon's eyes blazed with anger. Xanatos has nothing to do with Obi-Wan Kenobi," interrupted Mace. "Or at least he didn't until Xanatos kidnapped him and sold him into slavery."
He didn't trust Qui-Gon's assessment at this point, nor did he trust Kenobi's file now that the bullying and problems with El-Mem and Yoda's leadership of Squall Clan had been uncovered. That was the reason they had once again tabled the debate on who should be assigned the boy's master after Faye's threat. No one in the temple had an accurate assessment of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Actually, there was one being in the temple who possibly knew, a being who sat silent and brooding after Master Faye's call.
"Obi-Wan's anger, aimed at injustice, it is," admitted Yoda. "Not unusual, that is, for a youngling."
Not for adult Jedi either. Mace certainly struggled with it even now.
"Great Jedi, Obi-Wan will become. This I have seen. Too old am I for a Padawan, or take him I would."
Not to mention he'd have to step down from the council until Obi-Wan was a senior Padawan. It wasn't fair to the Padawan to have their master's attention split between the council and their training. Yoda looked directly into Qui-Gon's eyes.
"Good for you. He would have been. But that path closed now. It is. Mandalorian Jedi he will be."
"Mandalorian?" asked Qui-Gon. "My understanding was that Master Dooku was with the Mandalore on a mission that went wrong?"
No doubt Dooku had sent a comm to his former Padawan to express his displeasure.
"Much has happened in past days regarding the Mandalorians," said Even Piel. "The council doesn't have the time to brief you, but you can start by reading the book that was accidentally sent out to all Jedi 2 days ago."
Yeah, little Poof was pretending to be very interested in his spot on the ceiling.
"In the meantime, we have been forced to make some diplomatic amends in order to avoid an incident," said Oppo. One of those amends is that you are required to meet regularly with a mind healer here in the temple until you are cleared by both the mind healer and Master Trasa. Until you are cleared, you are not to go on any missions, and we strongly recommend you avoid all Mandalorians. To clarify, said Qui-Gon stiffly, you're grounding me here at the temple in order to placate the Mandalorians. I can understand diplomatic needs, and I'm happy to lay low, but I don't need a mind healer. There are very few beings in the galaxy who wouldn't benefit from talking to a mind healer occasionally, said Dara in a deceptively mild voice. Are you arrogant enough to claim to be one of them? Qui-Gon was caught. If he answered yes, he was arrogant. If he answered no, then he was admitting to needing help. No, Master Sinube, he reluctantly said.
Visit the mind healers often, we all do, said Yaddle gently.
Mace and many other council members nodded their agreement.
And if you truly aren't in need of a mind healer, you'll be cleared quickly,
said Tara jovially. Mace had spent enough time around the Kazian master by now to recognize it was a fake tone. None of them expected Qui-Gon to be cleared for active duty for a while. Despite many suggestions that he go to the mind healers after Xanatas's fall, Qui-Gon had never gone. The fact that he ignored the well-being of a child during this mission in favor of focusing on Xanatas showed the Master was in need of mental counsel. Qui-Gon had used to be the first person in front of the council arguing for helping beings in need of Jedi aid.
And what of Xanatas' reappearance?
Asked Qui-Gon, almost as if on cue.
A Republic arrest warrant has been issued for his crimes on Mandalore. If the Jedi are asked to apprehend him, we will have the team talk to you before they go, said Tivoka. I should be with them. They'll have no idea how Xanatos thinks.
That is why you will brief them before they go, said Tivoka impatiently.
The Wookiee hated having to repeat himself.
Master Faye's report said Xanatos' motivation was revenge on you. So why would we give him the satisfaction of sending you, where he gets an opportunity to attack you again?
Yet another key detail Qui-Gon had left out of his report. Honestly, maybe they could get him to attend a writing class for senior Padawans when he was temple-bound. Qui-Gon Jinn was frowning at the Voka before he swallowed down the negative emotion, and his face returned to the more typical Jedi calm.
If that is all, Masters.
Normally, they would have to interrogate Qui-Gon further since his reports left much to be desired, but here they had 3 other sources of information. Master Faye's and the Mandalorian reports and complaints, plus the debriefing of Obi-Wan Kenobi conducted by Master Dooku.
You are dismissed, Master Jin,
said Tivoka.
Master Tressa will contact you.
Darkside? What does that even mean?
Darksiders, or Sith, perhaps.
Dalsheti?
What does that mean? Asked Tiama, his teasing in his tone.
Not Jedi,
said Nabed after a moment's thought.
Just like Damonda is not Mandalorian, but we usually use it specifically for Sith, I think.
His clan hadn't been involved with any Dajeti before, but they had alliances with clans who had.
Well, both definitions would have fit how that place felt.